Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have Becca'S Bookopoly round 19. So if any of you guys are new here, if you've never seen Bookopoly before, I will pop a link up here to January's Bookopoly, which will give you a full tour of the board and an explanation of the rules, and the entire Bookopoly playlist with all 19 videos will be down in my description box if you want to catch up on the whole thing. But this is essentially a TBR game that I play every single month. We roll the dice, we land on a square, and I pick a book that fits the prompt. But for those of you guys who are familiar with what's going on here, let us revisit June's Bookopoly TBR and see if I managed to read them all. So June's Bookopoly TBR was a nice simple one. We had 5 books in total. They were The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord, which was a chance card pick, Rat Queens Volume 3, which was to read a graphic novel or a manga, Course of Miracles by Kester Grant, which was to read a young adult fantasy, Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter, which was to read a book that is inspired by myth, lore or legend, and I also had an ebook on my TBR of Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, which was for the prompt to read smut. So of the 5 books on June's TBR, I have so far managed to read 4 of them. The only one that I haven't yet read is The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. However, I finished Rat Queens Volume 3 directly before starting filming this video, and The Start of Me and You will be the next book that I start. I have 4 days left of the month, so I'm not worried, so we can consider June's TBR complete, and there will be, once again, no punishment. So in the month of June, I have been slumping quite heavily. I feel like my slump is kind of worse than it was last month. I'm definitely reading less books, although the page number I think is going to work out at about the same. However, I do have quite a few video ideas in my brain that I'm really excited about, which is making me more enthusiastic for reading again. So fingers crossed, July will finally be the month that I get my reading mojo back. So for readathons in the month of July, there is only one that I'm really participating in, and that is my very first readathon, which is based on Bookopoly. I do have an announcement video that I will link for you guys, but it is a 48-hour readathon that you cannot plan a TBR for because the prompts are going to come live throughout the 48 hours, but I'm really excited for that. The only readathons that I seem to be able to complete these days are either really short 24-hour or 48-hour ones, and month-long ones. Anything in between I just completely suck at. Aside from that, the Detectathon is happening in July. It was supposed to happen in June, but with all of the events of the past month, it was postponed and will be happening in July. I will once again be very low-key participating in that and seeing what books from my existing TBRs that do already fit that, because the one thing I really don't want to do when I'm trying to come out of a reading slump is get ridiculously overwhelmed. But I think that is about it for my plans, my hopes, my dreams, my wishes for my July TBR. So without further ado, let us get into our first roll. Okay, so last month we ended on smut. First roll. A double 6. A chance card. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. You know we're gonna have a bad time, guys, when Bookopoly does me dirty on the first roll. So roll number 1 was a double to start off with, which isn't ideal, but secondly, it was a chance card, which just takes all of the control of what I'm going to be reading for the month completely out of my hands. So July's chance card is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Now, this is one of the books in the stack that I'm very excited to read. I have not heard a single bad review for this book or this series, so I am very excited to read it, and I do think that I'm going to really enjoy it. However, I'm not really in a position to be starting a new fantasy series right now. I have a ton that I need to finish and continue on with. To be honest, actually, I'm considering this serendipity because I did just haul the 3rd book in this series and admitted that I've been buying hardbacks of this series and haven't even started it. So it's now time for me to get my shit together. So what I know about this is that it is the first book in an adult fantasy trilogy called the Daevabad trilogy. We follow a woman called Nari, and I believe that she is some sort of con artist, and she offers kind of spiritual and healing services to people under the guise that she can commune with higher entities. I think I've read the first chapter of this before, but I've pretty much forgotten all about it because it was like 2 years ago. But I do know that she's definitely a con artist, and one day when she is performing a con, she accidentally summons a real life genie and they have to go to the City of Brass. I've heard that in this book we have a brooding immortal, which you guys know that I am always down for, and I also believe that it is chock full of Egyptian mythology. I'm also going to be buddy reading this with Starla from Starla Reads. She recently put up a video with a ton of fantasy books that she owns and hasn't read in it, and kind of unsurprisingly, I also own the majority of those books. So in the month of July, we will be buddy reading this one together and making a dent in our ridiculous TBRs. Roll number 2. 5. a graphic novel or a manga. I almost forgive Bookopoly for her past transgressions now that she's made the second role a graphic novel or a manga, because I feel like it kind of balances it out a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to be reading Children of the Whales Volume 5 by Abby Umeda. This is a young adult, it's like an older teen manga series that follows a 14-year-old boy called Chakuro, who is the archivist on something called the Mud Whale. Now the Mud Whale is this huge island type thing that floats along on something called the Sea of Sand, and the residents of the Mud Whale have no concept of the outside world. They have never met a human that is from outside of their community, so when that island floats past another and they go out on a routine scout mission, they are very surprised to find a girl there, and this blows open the idea of everything that they've ever known and sheds a lot of light onto what the Mud Whale actually is. So this is, I'm not sure how many volumes are in this, I do think it goes up to at least 15. I am currently on volume 5. I do enjoy this manga series. My favorite thing about it is the art style, which is absolutely beautiful, and every time I read another volume of this, it opens the world a little bit further, which is definitely the thing that I'm most interested in this series. Roll number 3, 10, which is a thriller. So roll number 3 was a thriller. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, because overall thrillers, you know, they're pretty quick for me to read. However, I don't read a whole ton of them. I own just over 20, I think, and when I was looking at my shelves, there wasn't a single one that I wanted to read more than another. So the one that I've selected for July is Good Me Bad Me by Ali Land. This is a book that I featured in a video I did a couple of months ago called These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months, and essentially if I do not read this book within a 12-month period, I will have to unhaul it. So I thought, seeing as I had no preference this month, may as well pick the one that I'm going to be unhauling anyway. So this is one that was brought to my attention by BookTube a couple of years ago, so when I saw it in a charity shop, I did pick it up. However, that was very close to its release and I have heard very mixed reviews about it. So this follows a girl called Annie, and her mother is a serial killer. Annie has to make the very difficult decision to turn her mother over to the police. This gives Annie a whole new life, which includes a brand new family and also a brand new name. However, as her mother's trial approaches, the secrets of her past start to haunt her. So I have heard very mixed things about this. There's a lot of people who read a lot of thrillers who really didn't like it, but whenever I mention this book, a lot of people say that it's actually really good and I should give it a go. But at least in July, I will finally have my verdict, and it will be one more book ticked off the self-destruct video. Roll number 4, 7, which is a science fiction. So roll number 4 was a science fiction, which is one of my favorite genres, and for this I'm going to be reading a book that I have been highly anticipating and also been terrified of for the longest time, and that book is Vicious by V. Schwab. So this is the first book in the villains duology, and it follows Victor and Eli, who I believe start off as friends when they are students, and they start to perform a series of experiments to try and find out what makes extraordinaries, which as far as I'm aware is pretty much a superhero. They discover that the secret to creating extraordinaries is to have a near-death experience, so they begin to kill themselves and each other over and over again and bring each other back and themselves back from the brink of death so that they gain a variety of superpowers. I believe that the main part of this story starts when one of them has just been released from jail because Victor and Eli are friends no longer. They are now mortal enemies. So I read the first 2 books in the Shades of Magic series by V. Schwab probably in around 2015, and I did enjoy them. I just didn't feel the hype like everybody else was at that time, and that put me off V. Schwab a little bit. However, of all of her series, this is the one that I'm most interested in because I do believe it has a lot of grey morality. Neither Victor or Eli are in the right in this book. However, they do both believe that they are doing the right thing, and this justifies their actions. I'm also going to be buddy reading this book, this time with Jade from Jade Ray Reads. You guys are probably aware that me and Jade do regularly buddy read books together. We have just finished up the entirety of Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse, and now we are heading into the work of V. Schwab. V. Schwab is already one of Jade's favorite authors, so she has been so gracious to buddy read all of V. Schwab's books with me so that I can finally take the plunge and get back into V. Schwab, because there really is no reason why I've been avoiding her books, because I gave the first 2 books in the Shade of Magic series 4 stars each, so I just need to get over it and move on. Roll number 5, 8, an adult fantasy. Role number 5 was an adult fantasy, which is perfect because the book for my book club, the catch-up book club for June and July, is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the 3rd book in the Farseer trilogy and the 3rd book in the Realm of the Eldling series overall. And in this trilogy, we follow a young man called Fitz, who is the bastard son of the prince in waiting. The trilogy starts off when Fitz is 6 years old and his maternal grandfather dumps him on the door of the castle and says that he wants nothing to do with him anymore and that Fitz should go back to his father. So Fitz is then taken back to Bookkeep, which is the seat of the throne, only to find out that his father has heard the news and abdicated and moved to the countryside. So after this, nobody really knows what to do with Fitz, so the king decides to utilize him and train him to be the royal assassin. This is a very slow moving, very atmospheric, coming of age first person adult fantasy series that I've been absolutely loving. This one is hella chunky, she's over 800 pages, but I have really been enjoying this series, so I don't think that will be too much of a problem. Where we left off at the end of the 2nd book, I believe that Fitz is 16, so I'm thinking that this book may take him to around the age of 20, although I'm not too sure about that. But regardless, I'm very excited to dive back into this series. I've been struggling to not pick this up since I finished Royal Assassin, and if you guys are following along with my book club and Elder Lingalong, the live show for this should be at the beginning of June, but we will post a definite date on both the Discord and the Twitter a little bit closer to the time. And what will hopefully be our final roll, roll number 6. 11. A Dystopian. And our final roll, roll number 6, landed on Dystopian. I'm glad that we stopped at 6 rolls this month. I honestly don't think I could have handled another one. Dystopian is the prompt that I asked my Patreon members to pick for this month. So I put up a poll on my Patreon page with 4 books in, and they were The Girl with the Gifts by M.R. Carey, Feed by Myra Grant, Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, which would have been a reread for me, and Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And the winner of the Patreon poll for July was The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. So this is one that you guys have been recommending to me for a very long time. I started to really get into science fiction and I've been leaning more towards the logic-based sci-fi, which is kind of extraordinary or supernatural occurrences that have science to back them up. So you guys have been telling me over and over and over again that I should read The Girl with All the Gifts. So this book takes place either during or after a zombie apocalypse has happened, and it follows a young girl called Melanie who has some sort of gift. Now, it's been a while since I've heard any reviews of this, but I know it has something to do with Melanie's touch. I can't remember whether her touch turns people into zombies or cures them. Regardless, I do believe that because of her gift, she is being kept imprisoned and people like to utilize her power. That's all I know about it, but this book matches my outfit perfectly, which is kind of satisfying. So aside from my Bookopoly books, I just have 2 books to add to my TBR. The first one is the 4th book in the Books of Earthsea by Ursula K Le Guin. The 4th book I believe is called Tahanu, and I am reading 1 book out of this massive tome. This is the complete Earthsea collection every single month because I'm a co-host for the Le Guin Along. The live show for the 2nd and 3rd books, The Tombs of Atuan and The Farthest Shore, is going to be on the 4th of July on Ashley from A Frolic Through Fictions channel, I believe, but the book that we have to read in July is going to be Tahanu. I'm not too sure about the 4th book. I do think it follows a different protagonist. I think the 4th book follows a female protagonist, so I'm wondering whether that is going to be the main character from The Tombs of Atuan or not. I have been struggling with this series a little bit. It is not my favorite type of fantasy. However, I do believe that it is incredibly well written, and when I've read the 4th book, I will officially be over halfway through this series. And then the final book I have to read for this TBR is the 1st book that I will be reading for my readathon at Becca'S Bookopoly-thon. As I said, you can't build a TBR because you find out the prompts as the readathon is happening, but the first 2 prompts are in the announcement video, so you can pick your 1st book for the readathon. I'm going to be going with the 1st prompt from the 2019 board, which is to read a book from the paranormal, magical realism or fabulism genre, and for that I'm going to be reading A Sacrifice in the Smoke by KJ Sutton and Jessie Elliott. It is only 100 pages and it is the final part that is going to be released this year. The Charlie Travesty series follows a vampire princess called Charlie Travesty who is about to go through something called her awakening, which is when a vampire wakes up around their 23rd birthday and their eyes have changed colour, and the colour of their eyes denotes the sector of the city that they're going to have to spend the rest of their lives in. happen. So as you can imagine, Charlie wakes up on the evening of her awakening and finds out that her eyes are a different colour than anyone expected, and this sets off a whole chain of events. But that is the final book for my July TBR. It has turned out kind of hefty because with the extras there are 8 books on there, but fingers crossed I'm going to get a bit of zhuzh back into my life, especially my reading life, in July, and we are going to power through this TBR and maybe even do a little bit of mood reading afterwards. Like, that would be a luxury. So that is about it for this video. Please let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. Also let me know if you are participating in my readathon or detectathon, and maybe also which book you are reading in July that you are most excited about. But that's about it from this video, guys, so please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find links to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.